應該冇問題啦，而家。OK，英文吓。
係。
Hi, welcome everyone. Today we have Venerable De Hong, who will be having a Dharma talk as well as a sitting meditation with us. Why don't we take a few minutes and wait for the others, and also settle down our mind and focusing on our breath, and just focusing on your body. Feel your body, feel your breath. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. And once again, I'd like to welcome Venerable De Hong, who many of you know. And so today, Venerable De Hong will be starting on a series of talk on what we call the Four Noble Truths. So the first one is in Pali, or in Sanskrit, it's called dukkha. And so different translations, one of which is called suffering. So to me, it's a little bit like the first step of the 12 steps, that you have to acknowledge that you're an addict before you can really seek help. And so in this case is that if you don't think that there is anything in your life, in your being that needs improvement, then there's not much reason to go on. So this is a very important topic. So with that, I'd like to welcome Venerable De Hong once again. I'll give him the podium.
Thank you, Danny. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending my talk. I'm going to share with you guys this PowerPoint. Let me see. So 2 weeks ago, I spoke of the 5 daily contemplations, and a lot of it has to do with the stress or our inability to see through our stress, our dissatisfaction, and our suffering. So I decided to continue with the First Noble Truth. And probably the next talk I will associate it with dissociation. And you will see why. So a bit of the review, the 5 daily contemplations, we are of the nature to grow old, to be sick, to die without notice for some of us. We are separate from our loved ones or things that we love, and the last thing is that we have to deal with the consequences of our actions. which is karma. So, what is the First Noble Truth? Is the Buddha's first teaching to a group of 5 men who the Buddha used to practice with. And these are, birth, aging, sickness, and death, separate from loved ones. We have to deal with people we don't like. We can't have what we want. So in brief, this with us, each one of us, we have these 5 aggregates, and it's called suffering. Traditionally, in the Buddhist monasteries, we use number 8, the 5 aggregates, as suffering. But I'm teaching Buddhist psychology, and for beginners, for people who are new to Buddhism, to tell them that having the 5 aggregates are suffering, it would be difficult for them to understand. So I usually don't cover that first. So that's that. Now, the other thing about our suffering or our dissatisfaction, our stress, is that we need to realize that there is suffering, that we need to fully understand our suffering, and that we need to realize why we suffer. And that's the 3 aspects of the First Noble Truth. So why is it that birth is suffering? In the one, being born with these 5 aggregates, in traditional teachers, they would say that, oh, you are going to suffer. But I approach this differently from a mother's perspective, as well as the unborn's perspective, because we don't talk about this in America. In most Asian cultures, East Asia and Southeast Asia, the emphasis on suffering is the mother giving birth to her child. And also because of that, the concept of filial piety from Confucianism in China, and this is talked about and written in literature, music, and songs. And we are, as a kid, as children in Asian countries, we were literally brainwashed or reminded constantly that we need to take care of our parents regardless. That's the thing right here, the filial piety, which is not talked about in the U.S. or in the West. So why is it that birth is suffering from a mother's perspective? Let's say a woman, once she is pregnant, she probably does not find out until 6, when she is 5 or 6 weeks pregnant. And so for the first 2 months, she would experience this morning sickness, feeling fatigue, and the thing is, being pregnant in America doesn't give you the right to stay home. That doesn't happen in America. She has to go to work every day. She has to get through the driving. She has to deal with stress from work. And when she comes home, a lot of times she has to do the house chores, or she has to take care of other kids, be on top of cooking and everything else. And she carry this pregnancy to full terms. Usually, we were told that she would carry the child for 9 months and 10 days. And again, in America, she has to work until the last week or the last 2 weeks of the pregnancy. And also, giving birth to a child is the most excruciating pain that we could not even imagine. And I just ran into an article that there was a documentary that a woman giving birth, her body released so much endorphins to help with the pain. Otherwise, it will be so much more painful. And this article said we will never know how traumatizing birth is for the baby. Continuing, and once she gives birth to the baby, she has to go back to work. I guess with federal policy, she has 12 weeks of unpaid maternity leave. In California, she can have up to 4 weeks before delivery and up to 12 weeks after birth, partially paid. And so that's from a mother's perspective. And when now I don't think that give me 1 second. Now also when after the baby is born, the mother or the father has to stay up pretty much every night, for every 2 hours to feed the baby. For at least a few months. When the baby gets older, then it would take 3-4 hours. And the thing in America is that when we raise a child for 18 years, then when they go to college or they graduate from college, then they move out. Bye, mom. Then the other thing that we also don't realize is that a human brain is not fully developed until 24 or 25 years of age. So 18, 21, and 22, it doesn't mean that the person, the boy or the girl, is fully mature. And then the other thing from a mother or father's perspective is that when our parents grow old and couldn't take care of themselves, we throw them into nursing homes. Then, so that's the mother's perspective. On the unborn's perspective, this thing is in the mom's womb for 9 months, total darkness, 98-degree temperature. And when the mom is sick, the unborn is sick. When she is stressed, the unborn is stressed. And also, she passes on her nervous system onto the unborn. That's the key to remember. So if a mother is stressful constantly, then when the baby is born, he or she would have a tough time dealing with stress because of the nervous system that has been passed on to the unborn. Now, during the delivery room is around 70-something degree, and light is ambient. In the past, they use fluorescent light. And so imagine the shock of the unborn from a 98-degree temperature to a 7-degree temperature with light on. So the unborn is usually, the eyes of the unborn are closed. I witnessed that with one of my nephews after he was born back in 2008, July. He's going to be 18 at the end of this month. And, after birth, the mom or both parents have to feed the newborn every 2 hours, like I said earlier. And the parents have to take care of their child until 18. That's how long they're responsible for. So think of the time and the sacrifice that the parents have to make, and they are never paid. And each year in America, we choose one day to express our gratitude to our mothers. The other thing that Dr. Gabor Mate said this, which I agree, most children will never know how many sleep-deprived nights a mom or dad spent watching over them when they were ill. So this is from both the mother and the unborn's perspective. And I use this just because of the difficulty of being born as a human, and also because I work with folks inside the prisons, and a lot of them commit murders. I want them to appreciate their mothers, and I also want them to think of their victims. Just so that they would be more careful in their future interactions with people inside the prison. So there is a teaching by the Buddha. It's called Yoke with a Whole, about being born as a human. So basically, the Buddha said, suppose that this great earth, is a mass of water, and a man throw a yoke with a single hole upon it, and every 100 years, a turtle would surface to the water, and its neck would hit that single hole. So what's the chance? And that's the chance that of someone being born as a human. And it speaks of the precious human life that we have. And because of that, the Buddha emphasized, our ability, our chance to be able to study the Dharma, to become enlightened, to be, what we call the Tathagata. And the think about, so for us, and another point that I want to make is we do have a lot of folks with depression, and half of that population, half of the people with depression, they have suicidal thoughts, and they attempt to kill themselves. So my suggestion is, if you feel stressed, then think about what your stress is, what's the original of your stress, and how can you bring about an end to your stress. And that's the practice for all of us. And this also can include the folks with depression, even though it's not that easy for them. But for us, we also, because we don't know, I still don't know what happened to me, what will happen to me after I die, to be honest. And I just want to focus more of my time on studying and meditating. I also found an article about the miracle of being born as a human. The scientists, they calculate that being born as a human is 1 in 400 trillion, basically a 4 and 6, 12, 14 zeros. According to the Buddha's teaching, the probability of being born as a human is 1 in 700 trillion. Now, Dr. Ali Benazir, I'm sorry, I don't know if I pronounce his name correctly. He calculated to be a chance of being born, the probability of being born as a human is 10 to the power of 2 million. So basically, you have a 10 followed by 2 million zero. And so he said, being born as a human is a miracle. Again, my point is to emphasize that we need to treasure our human lives, no matter how stressful you are. Know how to take care of yourself, treasure your life, and treasure everyone that you encounter. So that's birth. That's just birth alone. Aging, sickness, and death. We celebrate, aging means we are getting old, right? And I usually tell people, my friends, people who I know close, when they celebrate their birthdays, you are 1 year closer to kicking the bucket. And we laugh at it. What are the signs of aging, right? We're losing our hair, losing our teeth, wrinkle, our vision, our hearing, our sense of taste and smell, weaker body. We can't escape that. But especially in modern day, especially in the West America, people do anything a lot of folks, they do anything to counter aging, cosmetic surgery, this and that, but I don't think that they realize the subtle signs of aging. So that's the aging, and then sickness, terminal illness, cancer. Some of this stuff that it happens gradually, or sometimes it just happen, and then the person would die within weeks or suddenly, right? Pandemic or accidents or disaster. These are the things that could happen to us that could cause us to be very sick or die. And the thing is, when the person die, it's not the person die that is suffering, it's the surviving family members and friends that suffer the separation, that they would experience depression. So when you look at it from taking a step back, birth, aging, sickness, and death are physical experiences. But because of our attachment, our rejection, our acceptance, then it could lead to psychological or mental health, mainly depression. Now, in terms of psychological suffering, separated from our loved ones, it could lead us to feel sad, lonely, or depressed. Dealing with people we don't like, we could become angry, we have resentment or hatred. It could be at home, dealing with family members or in-laws, right? Or friends, or at work, people at work. And you can't get out of it, or a lot of folks don't know how to get out of it. The number 7 is not getting what we want, and it could lead us to have craving, clinging, or even depression. So even, the First Noble Truth happens to everyone regardless of their wealth, their status, their culture, or their ethnicity. Again, psychological suffering could have a negative effect on people's physical and mental health. So for you guys out there, a quick something to think about, right? Of the 7 types of suffering, which one did you experience, or which one you are currently experiencing? And how have you managed it? Have you been able to overcome it, or you still don't know about it or ignore it? The thing is, even if you are healthy, even if you are wealthy, how are you prepared in case of something happen? And again, I came up with this model, with this drawing, because I teach Buddhist psychology. So basically, we all of us have to deal with the 7 types of suffering. However, growing up, a lot of people suffer childhood trauma. So if you have that, most of us, we don't even realize that. But again, having to work with folks inside the prison for the past 13, 14 years, the majority of them, almost 90%, suffer childhood trauma. And if you look at our kids, our students, elementary, middle school, high school, even college, right? They have to deal with mass shooting. They have to go through drill and prepare for mass shootings. We also suffer from disasters, disease, and wars, right? COVID-19 since 2020, we are still dealing with that. I have the incarceration here that applies to folks who are incarcerated or who have been incarcerated, and that is trauma. All of these are different types of trauma. And then racial trauma applies to Native American, Black Americans, who suffer because of the state of the our federal government's policy as well as state's policy. And then religious trauma, meaning if you go to a religion or people from other religions, if you don't convert, then they threaten you with, say, you will go to hell if you don't believe in our religion. I went through that a few times. And then your current relationships, You could be stressful because of, you could experience that because of domestic violence, or it could be from work. It could be abuse from work, and then the daily stress, right? Driving. I don't like driving, but having to drive to prisons with long distance, that is physical stress. However, the things that we don't realize, that the different types of trauma that we experience, we don't even pay attention to it. We think that our daily stress is causing us suffering, but for those of you who experience any of these types of trauma, you might want to contemplate and look deep down into your past. And because this shit here apply for people with childhood trauma. If you the first column is for the 10 types of childhood trauma, the middle column show the health risk behaviors, and the third column is the long-term consequences. People suffer from childhood trauma. If they don't know how to address it, they will constantly struggle, especially with addiction, with relationship, with depression, or other issues. And for long term, they would have terminal illness or cancer. I have seen a lot of this, and a lot of them, by the time they get to their late 40s, it will show up at that age. I have seen a couple friends who die in their late 40s or early 50s. This is about the racial trauma. I get this data from the Public Policy Institute of California, April 2026. When I walked inside, get into the prison, I saw a lot of black and brown bodies. They are outside walking out. But I didn't realize that black Americans in California, they only make up 6%. But inside the prison, they make up 27%. So think about it. This is state prisons. So it has to be from the policies, economic policy, educational policies, social policies from the state of California. I also have a couple cases of people that I know with childhood trauma. One, he was my former student. He was abused and neglected by his parents. He was bullied in school. And growing up, when he was sleeping, he always held his fist so tight that he broke the bones in his fingers. He had to go to the doctor, and the doctor ordered him to wear a pin or cast to prevent him from holding his fist. I think he's better now. He had a marriage, and he had a divorce because it didn't work out. The thing is, with child trauma, you are wounded, and if you are in a relationship with another person who also have similar issues, that is not going to work out. I also know of someone from the prison. When I saw him, he told me inside the prison at night when he was sleeping, he would hold his fist and punch the concrete wall, and when he woke up, his fist was covered with blood. And I told him that was child trauma. It was probably because he was attacked, and he had to try to hold his fist to push back, and it shows at night when he was in deep sleep, and his conscious or his unconscious mind showed up. So for you guys, for people out there, right? Besides the suffering that I talked about in the First Noble Truth, or the Buddha talked about, did you experience any type of trauma that I share in the pyramid? If so, have you worked on it? The thing about the different layers of trauma is that we think that it's normal. So we go on about our lives not realizing it, but we suffer alone. So the thing is that it takes time to reflect on, or to think about it, and even to come to terms to accept your traumatic experiences. The key to remember is that don't normalize it. It happened more than you know, but it's not okay. And those of you who come to meditation practice or to study Buddhism, with any traumatic experience, it would make it much more difficult for you to overcome the 5 hindrances. So in conclusion, try to reflect on the 7 types of suffering that I talked about, and realize that being born as a human is a miracle regardless of your status. Treasure yourself, take care of yourself, treasure your loved ones and people that you come into contact with. The key is to learn is to, what is my stress? What is the cause, or what's the origin of my stress, and how can I bring this stress to an end? Okay, so with that, let's meditate. Let's get into your posture. And let's take some deep breaths. Breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. This is one way to relax your body, but it's good to remind yourself and to tell yourself to relax. Let go of your thoughts, thinking, planning, fear, worry. Everything that you encounter since this morning, this past week, past month, let it go if you can, or put it aside. And tell yourself that you are safe, so that your brain does not have to be in hyper-vigilant mode. Once you're done, then breathe normally through your nose. Check your posture again. And let's start with a smile. See how you feel and how that feeling affects your body, meaning the physiological sensations in your body associated with your smile. You see that your feeling and the sensations are fading away. What do you feel next? Let's continue with the sensual practice. First, notice the environment, the space that you are in, or the room. And notice the personal space surrounding your body. And use your body to feel the room temperature, but not your mind to make the small talk. And using your awareness, let's check in with your mind, see how busy it is with thoughts constantly wandering away. Your feeling, your emotion, your mood, your attitude. Your sense of hearing, noise, sound, whether you are reacting to it or letting it be. Your sense of seeing, smell, and taste. Know that during meditation, these 3 senses are not active because there isn't anything to trigger them. Then your sense of touch in the body, how the clothes that you wear feel on your body, and any tension, physical pain throughout your body. The sensual practice helps you to stay grounded so you don't get distracted easily or feel overwhelmed when you are being triggered. You can do this practice anywhere, anytime. So let's bring your awareness to your breath. Let's breathe. Let's sit back and relax and breathe for a couple minutes to relax your body and calm your nervous system. Sometimes when we are busy or stressed, we forgot to breathe, and carbon dioxide stays in our body. Then our body becomes distressed. So always remind yourself, no matter what you do, where you are, always come back to the breath and breathe for a few minutes. If your mind is restless, bring it back. And as you breathe in, you can say peace. Breathe out, say chaos. Breathe in, joy. Breathe out, stressed. Whatever words that work for you. You can also tell yourself to slow down. Tell your mind to slow down. There's nowhere to go but here. There's no rush. When you are sitting and breathing for a few minutes, it will trigger the parasympathetic nervous system. Bring your body to a state of resting flow. Continue to stay with your breath. Let's use this time to process the thoughts in your conscious mind. On average, we have some 50,000 thoughts a day, and a lot of these thoughts are useless. Some could even be harmful or toxic, and day after day, they add up if you don't do anything about it. And a lot of times, they stay in your default mode network. So let's make a conscious effort, relaxed, and let's get rid of this negative, toxic thoughts or useless thoughts. See if there's any negative self-talk. I hate myself. I'm stupid. I'm no good. Flush them out. And promise yourself not to repeat them again. If they come back, keep doing the same thing. If you have a negative view of someone or something, flush it out. Don't add any more negativity into your conscious mind. If someone did or said something to you that was harmful or hurtful, let it go. And let go of that person as well. Don't let them stay in your conscious mind. If there's any fear or worry, let it go. Don't waste your time and mental energy thinking about fear or worrying about somebody or something. It's beyond your control. Fear of the future, fear of the unknown leads to anxiety. So let that go as well. Put aside all your planning. If images of your loved ones showed up, put them aside. No need to engage with them at the moment. They will always be there. See if there's any craving for pleasure to make you feel good. Let it go if you can. Or clinging to someone who doesn't care about you, or a relationship that is not working. Know that craving and clinging could have a negative effect on your physical and mental health. If you feel stressful at the moment or lately, then examine what that stress is, how it comes about, or who causes it. And can you figure out and overcome that stress? Stress could be external or internal. It could be physical, psychological, or mental stress. Then if there's any anger or sadness from decades ago that still lingers in the back of your mind, take some time to investigate and see why it is still there. Once you figure it out, most likely you can let it go. This is how you purify your mind. Just as you clean your house, your room, you take care of your physical body, you do the same thing for your mind, for your conscious mind, your mental health. The more thoughts you let go, the deeper is your mindfulness, and the more spaces you have in your conscious mind. And that you're able to see through the layers of thoughts, your past thinking, your past behavior with your intention behind it. That is your wisdom or your insight. And based on your insight, you want to continue to do what's best for you. Therefore, be honest, be open, and be objective, so that in each moment you can make proper decisions for yourself, your future. Then let's turn your attention to your feeling for a couple minutes. See how you feel after you let go of a lot of the negative and harmful thoughts. Perhaps you feel lighter, calm, spacious. Know that your feeling comes and goes. It's constantly changing. It does not stay. And notice your tendency to attach or crave for more good feelings and suppress, ignore negative feelings. This is the practice of mindfulness of feeling or feeling tone that allows you or gives you the ability to tolerate all kinds of feelings, including anger, sadness, loneliness, grief, because most of our feelings don't last more than 10 seconds. It's your ability to bear witness to the feeling that comes up in your mind or from your body. Continue to stay with your breath. Let's practice compassion for yourself. Compassion is your ability to recognize your stressed or difficult issues or people that you have to deal with, and how to treat yourself with unconditional kindness instead of reacting or making it worse for yourself. This is a mental training of the mind. As you are sitting, you can repeat some of the following phrases. May I recognize any stressed, difficult issue or people that I experienced. May I not react to any of them. May I not say or do anything to harm myself and others. May I love myself unconditionally. May I be calm and peaceful. Just keep repeating these phrases to cultivate self-kindness for yourself, and to replace the negative self-talk that you just let go. the more you repeat these phrases, the better chance they will go into your default mode network in your brain. Once they do, whenever you are under stress, you know how to treat yourself with compassion. And see how you feel when you treat yourself with compassion, unconditional kindness, and love. And see how that feeling affects your body, even as you are sitting, meditating, standing. May I recognize any stressed, difficult issues or people that I experienced. May I not react to any of them. May I not say or do anything to harm myself and others. May I love myself unconditionally. Just notice how you feel as you repeat these phrases. Let's sit in silence for a couple minutes. Just allow these phrases to enter your consciousness, even into your subconscious mind. Let's check in with your mind using your awareness and see how your mind is, perhaps settled, clear, spacious, your feeling, your emotion, your mood, your attitude. And notice the qualities of mindfulness, concentration, patience, and compassion that you just cultivated. With that, I will hand it over to Danny. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Venerable. So I mentioned when we started, I said the first noble truth, talking about dukkha or suffering, is very similar to the first step of the 12
12
steps
steps.
to recovery. That the rest of the 12 steps doesn't make any sense unless you acknowledge that you are a drunk addict, a wife beater, or a shopaholic, or whatever it is that you wanted to correct. And so in this case, we're talking about dukkha and suffering. And you gave the important examples of how life itself is suffering, starting with your birth for both yourself and your mother, and growing up, and then aging, and then finally death, right? So I was thinking that what we're really talking about is not the physical suffering, but rather the emotional suffering that are associated with them, right?
That too.
Because I remember when we had a first child, I was in the delivery room with my wife, and when I walked in, I noticed that the bed that she's on, the rail were like 3 inches thick, in diameter. I said, "Wow." I knew there was going to be a lot of pain, but I didn't know it was going to be that much pain. So as my wife goes to the neighbor, she said, "I'm never going to do this again." And she grabbed me by the says, "You promised me that I'm never going to do that again." And it was a lot of pain. I mean, a man can never describe the pain.
Right.
So sometimes I said it's like somebody yanking a watermelon, you know, out of you, or a square watermelon, but actually it's more like an oversized thorn with the thorns. I mean, it's a lot of pain. So she was going through a lot of pain, but of course, once the baby was born, it seems like the pain just went away, and there was just a lot of joy for her, for me, for everyone. And then shortly after, many months later, she suggested, and I, of course, agreed that we will have another one. Not, you know, because she said that it would be unfair that
Mm-hmm.
our daughter would be the only child. I mean, if that's the case, that's fine. But on the other hand, if we could, we should, she should have a sibling, and so we have two child. And so, yes, there is a lot of physical pain involved, and I am not going to talk about how bad it is, because anything I say doesn't measure up to what she feels. But there are
Right.
joy. There is actually joy in birth. It's really how you deal with it. So just because it's physical pain doesn't necessarily translate into emotional or spiritual pain. So what we're talking about here is not the physical aspect of it, but more like the emotional and the spiritual aspect of it. It's how you deal with it, right? Um, Growing up, when I look back, I mean, there was a lot of suffering, pain, disappointment growing up, but yet I only remember the good stuff.
Yeah.
Aging, we're both aging now, and I kind of enjoy aging.
Oh yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
okay, it's okay. Yeah, the body aches, I can't do things as well as I can, and I I don't speak as fast as quickly as I used to. My accent comes back, so I'm speaking as if I'm just fresh off the boat now, as opposed to, what I managed to improve over the years. That's what happens when you age. Your mother tongue comes back. Um, but I'm enjoying aging. I know it's considered a suffering, but I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just how you react to it. So many people say, "Oh, then how about death? That must be suffering." Not necessary. Not
Nope.
necessary. I'm not speaking from experience. I haven't died yet, but my father died 4 years ago. Towards the end of the pandemic, he was suffering all through the pandemic. He ultimately died from dementia, and it was a very difficult process for myself and for my mom, who's the caretaker. But I watched my father die. I watched him, took his last breath. I see the joy in him, the release in him when he died, because he couldn't recognize any of his family members anymore. People keep saying that I'm your number one son. He said, "No, you're not." But on the other hand, he recognized us as someone who cares about him, and he's very grateful to that. He asked for death because he was living with very little dignity. You know, he we had to take care of him, for all his biological need, feeding him and changing his diapers and so on. He lived with he could, he didn't feel that he was living with dignity, and he didn't want that. He didn't want that. And so towards the end, I was very careful arranging all our family members to come see him, and I gave instructions, as I always do. I said, let's talk about only four things. Let's thank him, be grateful. Let's say that we love him, and let's say that we are sorry for what we do. And then finally, let's just all say goodbye. Don't say anything else, just those four things. And I knew that he was ready to go, but yet he was hanging on. And I didn't understand, what else is there to hang on? I know he didn't want to, he was ready, but yet he was hanging on. And then my mom came and he says, oh, by the way, some of his co-workers want to come and say goodbye. Oh, I said, okay, sure. Then I realized that he was waiting to say goodbye to his co-workers because the family was only half of his existence.
Mm-hmm.
His professional life was the other half. And he was ready to go as soon as he said goodbye. So his co-worker came and they said goodbye, and he didn't say, but you can see from the eyes that he said goodbye. And then he was ready to go. I saw him, taking his last breath, his eye fixed on me, and he died with joy. So you can't tell me that death is always suffering. It's how you deal with it. And I think that's what Buddhist teaching is all about, is how do you deal with it?
Correct.
How do you deal with your suffering, which is mainly your emotional and spiritual suffering? So to finish, I don't know why, but to finish, one of my favorite movie stars is Clint Eastwood. He was my favorite movie star even before he came to the United States. I watch all his westerns, in subtitles.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a scene in one of his best movies called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where he was holding a pistol and he was standing on top of a ditch. And there was a guy, on the bottom of the ditch with a shovel. And Clint said to him, and he says, there are two kinds of people in this world. Those who hold a gun and those who hold a shovel. And you don't have a gun, so start digging. I love that because that's my attitude towards life. If you hold a shovel, that means that you treat life as a process to dying. You're giving a death sentence anyway, the day that you were born. And your whole life is to prepare for your eventual death. There's not much meaning to that. I'd rather be the one to have control.
Mm-hmm.
My control of my physical being, my wealth, my health, right? I'm very active in making sure that I retire, my family retire with some resources. We all did that, right? We all did that. I'm very careful about my health, but now I'm more focused on having the ability to choose my spiritual health and my mental health. And so I think today is a very important topic in that if you don't recognize that there are suffering in your life, mainly emotional and spiritual suffering, because independent, just because you're poor doesn't mean you suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you're rich doesn't mean that you don't suffer. It's a choice,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So any questions out there, especially with my Insight Timer bunch? There are 120 meditators out there. Gotta be one question. Someone donated $11. That's more money you ever made.
I
As a monk
know.
per hour.
I have not made a dime this year from the prisons.
And you won't be. And
No.
yet you're not suffering.
Hmm.
Okay. So I really like the idea that you're here with our English speaking students at least um, uh, twice a month. Someone says, and I don't understand the word elder care. I believe that's
Elder
elder care.
care. Yeah,
Maybe
elder
elder,
care. Hmm.
CADR? What does that
Yeah.
mean?
I think it's elderly
Just
care.
elderly care. Okay.
Hmm.
Elderly care. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
If you have someone in your family that you believe that you would be the um, care provider at some time further down, further down the road, whether it is your parents or your aging uncle or even your spouse, that's a problem with someone um, who has a partner and who are both aging. There are only two possibilities. One is that you're taking care of the other person, and the other one is that the other person is taking care of you. And I'm not sure who's luckier, but
Hmm.
if you think that you end up being the person who take care of the other person, then you really, really need to have the tools to manage your emotion because it's a very, very, very painful process. Right? Okay, just says was caring for a 95. I think it's good for you, and just passed away. And my father with
Dementia.
dementia across the
Hmm.
country, both are single. We get amazing perspectives, especially with my child who's 7. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's actually you need to get your children involved in your life. You know, that's that's one of the things that we for some reason we don't seem to do well in the Western world. And I don't mean just Westerners. Even some Asians who are living in the Western world, living in the Western culture, is that we separate the elders from the child,
Yeah.
and we tend to put a lot of focus on the child.
Yeah.
So they become the center of the universe. Actually, that's not that healthy. That's not that healthy. You need to get your child involved in your own responsibility, with
Hmm.
them understanding that they're not the center of the universe, and neither are you. We have responsibility in this world.
Yep.
That's right. Okay. Okay, with that, we close and we'll see again in
Two.
what's the next month? This is July,
August.
so August, yeah, sometime in August, first Tuesday of August.
I think August 4th
August 4th. Okay,
in two
sounds good.
weeks. Yeah.
Sounds good. And you want to talk a little bit about your prison work because we all want to hear that.
Uh, I don't know if we have
Little bit,
time.
because you finally were given permission to celebrate Vesak Day, which is the day that we celebrate Buddha
Yeah, this
in
past
our yeah.
yeah, this past weekend I was Friday I drove out to Blythe on Saturday on Thursday. I celebrate the day-long meditation in BR. Got 20 guys. They
Hmm.
approved me to order sandwiches, fresh made from Albertson. I ordered three orders.
Hmm.
They finished it off.
What kind of sandwich?
Italian.
All right, okay, because you always have to force them to eat your vegetarian sandwich.
I
I'm not saying it's bad, but how hard.
no. I mean, people inside the prison, they have been suppressed and, not getting anything. So I
Yeah,
rather have something nice, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I ordered the Italian because it has different kinds of meat
Yes,
and lettuce and tomatoes,
yes.
fresh made in the morning, and, something they get to enjoy like once a year. And a lot of them, they have not had it for 20, 30 years, like why make them eat veggie? So I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
I
We,
bought
as a
in.
taxpayer, we're paying over $120,000 a year to house a incarcerated. They should be having a syrup stick every day.
I know, 120, almost $130,000. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
but they're
know,
not. Yeah,
yeah, so yeah, and I bought organic bananas from Costco, Gatorade, and brownies. I had 20
what a
guys.
feast! What a
Yeah,
feast!
yeah, we meditate from 9 to 12, so in
Mhm.
the morning, and then I gave them they have an hour to eat, and then we just chat after lunch. So it was good.
Yeah.
And then I came
Now,
back.
when you say I drove up to the prison, you didn't mention that it took 3.5 hours. It was actually at the border of California and Nevada. It's the most remote prison we have out of the 31 or 32 state prisons
31.
in California.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
no one ever go there unless they don't have a choice.
No, nobody in their sane, if they are sane, in their right mind would drive out there.
Yeah, yeah. So someone
Yeah.
says, "Have you seen the Dharma Brothers film?" Yes, we have.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Anyway, so and then the next day I visit on 4 years and I had 81 guys. So
Oh, so you
I'm
stayed
grateful.
overnight? Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
stayed
I'd stay
overnight.
2 nights. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. But I'm grateful.
Very good, very good.
Okay. Mhm.
It's getting harder and harder now to do what you do
Oh, yeah.
because of the it's a Democratic governor.
Hmm.
He's finishing his term, and he was very progressive in trying to bring loving kindness and compassion into the prison. He even tried to, well, he not try, he has changed
Hmm.
San Quentin, which is the closest prison to San Francisco, into more of a not just to incarcerate, but also as a place to rehabilitate.
Hmm. Yeah.
So a lot of this this kind of changes the dynamics of the prison system, and not everybody is on board, right?
No,
And
very little.
they take it out on you.
It's okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
so this is those who are out there, whether you're on Insight Timer, Facebook, YouTube, or even on Patreon. Um, um, uh, Give yourself some time to learn about Venerable De Hong and the work that he does. And okay, someone says, "May I ask which he said which Buddhism?" So I suppose he's meant which sect of Buddhism do you practice? And I think he meant that for you. From Tibet, Thai, India, or Chinese? We only practice one Buddhism, which is whatever the
Yeah.
Buddha
I
taught.
do meditation. That's it,
Yeah,
mostly.
so when you talk about Thai and Tibet and Indian
Hmm.
and Chinese, you're talking about the difference in the uniform,
Correct. Yeah.
right?
The
And
approach.
but to be fair, the difference is in the culture.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
when the Buddhist teaching went to Tibet, it takes
Hmm.
on the Tibetan culture. When it went to Japan, when it went to China, it went to and to be honest, the Buddhism in the United States, if it were from China or Tibet or Japan, it would never survive.
Hmm.
It would only survive if we integrate it with the Western culture, with the culture of the land. And so, in that sense, we are just starting. We're just starting to try to understand, what exactly do we have to do to bring Buddhist teaching into our culture.
Yeah. Hmm. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So D, another D. Oh,
Hmm.
no, that's you.
That's
Oh,
me.
okay.
Yeah,
I
I
thought there was
answered the
another D.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you who could not read the comment, Venerable De Hong says, I practice mainly mindfulness from the Theravada tradition. So the people that practice the Theravadas are the people from Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, and a little bit in Vietnam. And then
Yeah.
he continued to say, uh, I came, and somewhat that Venerable D came from the Pure Land tradition, which is the Chinese
Vietnamese. Mm-hmm.
tradition and the Vietnamese tradition. That happens a lot. That happens a lot. That we grew up with one culture, and then
Switch.
eventually, we but to kind of, if I may, so you can at least put it into two columns in terms of the one is what was passed down by Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
So that's is written in Pali. So there are Pali Sutra that are passed down first by word of mouth, and then and eventually it was written down. Um,
Yeah.
so, so we call that the Theravada tradition, and the other one is like the Chinese tradition that when it went to China and from the history, they actually failed the first time. If
Mm-hmm.
they took the original teaching of Buddha into China, it actually failed.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to be reintroduced into China, and it had to be done in a way that was consistent with the local culture, which includes the the Taoism and the Confucianism. So as a result, the Chinese traditions of Buddhism, what we call the Mahayana tradition, is very different from the Theravada tradition, only because of the culture. And
Mm-hmm.
similarly, when you talk about the Tibetan culture, it also failed the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it had to be reintroduced. And by that time, it had to be integrated into the local culture, which is called Bun. And similarly, in Japan, it's successful. Zen Buddhism in Japan is successful because it coexists with
Shinto.
uh, the Shintoism.
Shinto.
Yeah. So um, it's not that there's different kinds of Buddhism. It's just there are different interpretation of Buddhism, and the only way that it would work is if the interpretation is done in a way that is consistent with the culture,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, in that sense, we are in the beginning of that in the West, introducing Buddhist teaching, but in a way consistent with science,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
we're West people in the West focus more on science, but the kind of science that I would call experimental science, that everything has to be, verified with instrumentations and so forth, as
Yeah.
opposed to the Eastern science, which is more the experiential science, right? So it had to be done within the scientific framework, and it also had to be done consistent with what we need as consumer, which is how do I deal with the stress, how to deal with the 24/7
Mm-hmm.
demands on our time, how do we deal with all of that. So it's evolving. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
right. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. And yes, now Thich Nhat Hanh is an interesting person. So she said, thanks, Stanley, for explaining. As I started mindfulness from Thich Nhat Hanh first, to so it seems more interesting to learn the Buddhism behind mindfulness.
Yeah.
Let me say, okay, so typically we say, okay, this is mindfulness, this is vipassana, this is Zen. Now you have to understand that that's not to say one kind of meditation you learn mindfulness, and one kind of meditation you learn vipassana, and one kind of meditation you learn one kind of Buddhism you learn Zen. Actually, in order to truly practice Buddhist teaching, you need all of that. You cannot do mindfulness meditation without ultimately doing Zen, and
Mm-hmm.
you cannot do Zen meditation without vipassana, which is really a way of looking inward as opposed to outward. So you cannot, what I call, turn it into silos and say, okay, this is that, and this is that, and this is that. It's just that. they emphasize one, but in the end, you have to encompass all. Okay. All right. So anyway, we are all in the process of learning. I am not awakened, and I doubt that Venerable De Hong would proclaim that he's awakened.
No, no,
So
no, no, no.
we are the blind leading the blind. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank
So
you, everyone.
feel free to contact Venerable De Hong and maybe figure out how to write to him if you need to. He in addition to the he right now he's limiting his participation to 3 different prisons, but each prisons have different yards. So every time he goes to a prison, it's as if he's visiting 3 or 4 prisons. But when he's not doing that, he actually answers letters. Well, most of them are incarcerated, but just don't tell him that. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Let me turn off the outside and then we'll have a discussion. Okay. Thanks again.
Give me 1 second.
Just give me 1 second here. Let me turn off the outside. 好啦，大家可以